Approach control, this is the SSV Normandy, requesting a vector and a berth.
Normandy, your arrival was not scheduled. Our defense grid is armed and tracking you. State your business.
Citadel business. We got a Council Spectre aboard.
Landing access granted, Normandy. Be advised, we will be confirming identification on arrival. If confirmation cannot be established, your vessel will be impounded.
What a fun bunch. I think I'll take my next leave here.
In this lore video, we will discuss all things related to the planet of Noveria, including the capital and primary trading outpost, Port Hanshan, along with corporations, the research, Peak 15, the missions, and the wider implication this has for the galaxy of Mass Effect. We will use established canon provided from BioWare and speculation from ourselves and others to fill in the blanks. There are many spoilers. There are many minor spoilers ahead, although I guess some will be related to the story of Mass Effect 1, so if you haven't played that, go play it first. Noveria is the second planet from the Pax star, which is in the Horsehead Nebula.
So it has an orbital distance of 0.9 astronomical units, which makes it pretty much dead on like Earth's orbit. It's a 0.9 Earth years orbit period. Keplerian ratio is 0.9, so it's pretty much very, very, very similar to Earth in that sense. However, it's a lot wider, I guess, than Earth, and its day length is 52 hours as opposed to 24 hours, so it's more than double the day length. Atomic pressure is 0.87 atm. Surface temperature average will be -1 degrees C, so pretty cold. Gravity 0.81 g, which means that it's a little bit I guess weaker gravity than Earth, which is kind of good, and it's about just over half, so 0.63 of an Earth mass. Obviously the capital was mentioned was Port Hanshan. Interestingly enough, the colony was founded in 2163, so it's not an old colony in terms of this galaxy. It's quite recent, so actually post humans getting out there in the world. And the population estimate that we're given is from 2183, which is Mass Effect 1, 361,400. And population from 2186, which is Mass Effect 3, is 405,200.
Yep, so in Mass Effect 1, Noveria is a small frozen terrestrial world barely habitable by conventional definitions. It is privately chartered by the Noveria Development Corporation, who lease out labs to perform research too dangerous or controversial to be performed elsewhere. Given Noveria's unique situation, it is the source of many wild conspiracy theories.
So again, the way it appears in Mass Effect 3, much the same. It's still a small frozen terrestrial world, barely habitable in that sense, and privately chartered by the NDC, who lease out the labs. The war, as in the Reaper War, has brought significant attention to this otherwise obscure planet. Noveria is home to some of the most advanced research in the galaxy, and would be a sure magnet for things like Cerberus's interest. More than that, Noveria's mass relay is a stopgap between the humans' Exodus cluster and the beginning of Stellarian space, so you'd imagine it would be a safe bet that the Stellarians would defend their borders to the utmost.
So yeah, as we said, Noveria is a cool rocky world with most of its hydrosphere locked up in massive glaciers. A privately chartered colony world, the planet is owned, as we said, by the NDC, which is funded by investment capital from 24 high technology development firms and administrated by an executive board representing their personal interests. The investors built remote hot labs in isolated locations across Noveria's surface. These facilities are used for research too dangerous, as we said, to be performed elsewhere. By special arrangement, Citadel Special Tactics and Reconnaissance Agents, so Spectres, have been given extraterritorial privileges, but it remains to be seen how committed the executive board is to that principle. And given its unique situation, it is understandable that Noveria is often implicated in all manner of wild conspiracies and I guess also legal troubles.
Yeah. So it features the Skady Mountains, where the isolated lab Peak 15 is situated, and also the Aloysk Valley, which is the pass between Port Hanshan and the mountains. Locals known to Noverian denizens include a resort at the equator that provides amenities like accredited Asadura fields and caters to other leisure activities like bounce backing and diving.
According to BioWare, the name Noveria was derived from Nova Siberia, so New Siberia. Side note from you, Hanshan is Chinese for cold mountains.
Yeah,
so that's pretty cool.
Correct. So obviously a lot of the Mass Effect universe and places and people and things have been named after either real life things, real life language, or other fictional works. This one obviously is very even the Aloysk Valley is probably a reference to the Aleutian Islands, which are the two islands dotted in between the very northeastern part of Russia and the top of Alaska. Basically the international date line, so the opposite side of the Greenwich Meridian line, basically passes directly through those islands. So one side of those two islands, which are 2Ks apart, is the furthest east in the world, and the other side is the furthest west in the world, effectively. So that's kind of a cool little reference too. But basically, it's cold places, and it's also places associated with a cyberpunk style, existence. More on that later though.
Yep, so early in Mass Effect's original development, Noveria was actually depicted to be under planetary bombardment from an unknown aggressor, and Shepard's crew was supposed to pick up transmissions for aid, but opted to ignore it instead for a mission to Calliston, which I guess they decided not to do that. I think they had more than enough going on Noveria already to sort of keep us interested as players, so I'm sort of glad that they stuck to what they initially had, or not what they initially had planned. I'm glad they sort of revised what they ended up doing.
Correct. Yeah. So in the early, I guess, Art of Mass Effect universe too, it was stated that Noveria was to have a lower alpine region, which ended up being cut because apparently in kind of pre-game testing, it made some players think they were on another planet, which is interesting because obviously our actual planet that we live on has all kinds of different settings. So obviously that's a weird one, but I get it. All right, so obviously we've heard of a few these 24 corporations and researching and all the rest of it that goes on. So here's, I guess, a bit of a deeper look on the important corporations that are on Noveria. So the big one is the Noveria Development Corporation, the NDC, which is a holding company that claimed the planet Noveria with the combined capital of these other high-tech companies. So the other companies that we shall get to are mostly Binary, Helix, Anilana's Risk Control Services, and Synthetic Insights. Because of the NDC's ownership, Noveria is a privately chartered colony without input from any Citadel race's government, so is therefore not legally part of Citadel space.
The NDC's primary interests are represented by the Executive Board, which essentially governs Noveria at this point because, as you said, it's outside of Citadel space, so they kind of get to decide things for themselves. And as the Executive Board sort of governs Noveria, they keep the other tech companies in line. The Executive Board appoints an administrator to oversee day-to-day business on Noveria, and when Commander Shepard arrives during Mass Effect 1, the current administrator is a Solarian named Anilana. The administrator's position allows him quite a great deal of power, which often opens him up to the temptations of corporate corruption. The NDC's executive board accepts this and normally tolerates self-interest as long as it doesn't interfere with their overall business.
Yep, so although Noveria is not technically under Citadel law, the NDC allows Spectres special privileges, but they are in a unique position to hamper a Spectre's investigation if it might cause problems for the NDC's investors. So they will not directly interfere, but they could bury the Spectre under litigation and paperwork if they deem it necessary.
So when the NDC discovered that the administrator Anilana was earning kickbacks from lab rents and driving away customers, they appointed an internal affairs agent, Gianna Parasini, to gather evidence. Parasini saw Shepard's arrival as an opportunity to get the files she needed to prove Anilana's guilt and asked Shepard to help her. Depending on how Shepard chooses to resolve the corruption plot surrounding Anilana, after Anilana is arrested, the NDC may appoint Laura Queen as the new administrator.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on to the next corporation, we have Binary Helix, who do come up later on in games in a little bit more detail. But basically, Binary Helix is the leader in the fields of genetic engineering and biotechnology. They currently have a significant presence on Noveria, which provides them security from Luddites, organic baseliners, and fundamentalist groups who are opposed to their work. They also do some research in the field of biotic implants.
Yep, so in 2183, Binary Helix was renting a lab facility on Peak 15, which was also being used to breed the Rachni. after they found an ancient egg on a derelict ship. Binary Helix also began developing a biotoxin called Thoros B, intended to kill an exotic life form, possibly on Saren Arterius' orders, but ordered Dr. Zev Cohen to make it affect more species so that they could market it better. Yep.
So Saren and Venezia were key investors in Binary Helix. Venezia was actually an executive secretary with the company, Saren's official executor. Saren's status as an investor allowed him a degree of control over Binary Helix's activities, and he was able to plant Alessia Ayalis at the Rift Station in case Commander Shepard made it that far. Using her influence with the company, Venezia intended to groom the reborn Rachni to form a large part of Saren's forces.
But before Saren's project comes to fruition, the Rachni escaped the containment and ravaged the Peak 15 facility, killing many of the scientists and triggering a mass lockdown. When Shepard finally arrives at the facility to investigate Venezia's involvement, the commander rescues the surviving scientists and security guards, and then triggers a neutron purge to euthanize the remaining Rachni. Although I think at this point during the game you can also... Is there a choice you can make, or is this always a purge? Can't remember.
I think somehow you do always have to do it, pretty much.
Fair enough, yeah. As of 2185, the future of Binary Helix is said to be in doubt as a result of the Peak 15 incident.
Yeah. Okay, so incidents involving VH, we had the Armali Council espionage. So Malene Callis was also introduced VH's activities, hoping to persuade Shepard to help her spy on a VH rep at Port Hanshan named Rafael Vargas. Vargas can talk to Shepard about the military genetic modification packages VH have available, but is quick to insist that VH obey all the Citadel Council's genetic mod regulations.
So they were also involved in genophage research, and obviously the genophage is a really, really big thing. So we'll get to that probably in another video. But Shepard can hear a news story about Binary Helix on the Citadel. BH have recently settled out of court with a group of Krogan investors. The Krogan wanted Binary Helix to investigate a possible cure for the genophage, but they got angry when the study showed no results and sued the company. Given Saren's connections to Binary Helix, this may be related to the genophage cure that Saren was using on Vermeer to create clones.
Yep. So there's also the war on Garvug, which is so in 2185, Binary Helix joined with the corporations Guangqi Solutions and Sonax Industries to invade the remote world of Garvug, which Binary Helix planned to exploit for eco-engineering research. Binary Helix supplied logistical support staff for the operation, but months into the conflict, the corporatist war effort had apparently stagnated in the face of ongoing insurgent attacks.
So the Europa discovery, scientists working in Binary Helix's Nautilus facility under the ice sheets of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, discovered microorganisms inside a rock sample, and this led to a dispute with the Systems Alliance, with whom Binary Helix had contracted to explore Europa over the rights of the microorganisms' genetic material. Binary Helix then countered the Alliance's claims by pointing out contract clauses which granted the corporation first claim to any life forms created, modified, or discovered on Europa. And so weeks later, the Nautilus facility was flooded and the Alliance called in to rescue the workers.
Yeah, the official explanation was that the station's loss was an accident, but as the flooding destroyed all security systems, the exact cause was left unresolved. Over BH's protest, the Alliance confiscated data from the station in the event that someone or something inside was responsible for the incident. So Binary Helix's name is probably a reference to the structure of DNA, and apparently in the French version of Mass Effect, Binary Helix was named as Twin Helix.
Yep, so I guess onto the final, I think it's the final...
no, it's second
last?
One more after that, yeah.
So the penultimate corporation involved, this is Alana's Risk Control Services, so ERCS. They are a private security corporation that provides a host of services ranging from simple event security to professional mercenary companies and starships to counter piracy. ERCS began as a privately owned Turian security firm, but has since expanded into an interstellar conglomerate after opening itself up to foreign investment. Their affordable yet reliable armor, weapons, and omni-tools are popular with security personnel and mercenaries.
Nobody takes my weapon.
Yep, so their name suggests they may specialize in riot equipment or dangerous situations. However, they do produce armor for like humans, Krogan, and Turians. So duelist and guardian armor in particular, and duelist armor can be modified for Quarian use. And then there's also an exclusive line of armor called the Warlord armor, which is for obviously Krogans. So they have a facility on the planet Noveria where they create lethal and non-lethal weapons. And yeah, look, there's a list of a bunch of weapons and armor that they create that we'll have on screen. So for anyone that's interested, the next company and the final company that we're going to mention is Synthetic Insights, which is a pretty important company for a lot of reasons. Long story short of it is they're one of only 4 corporations that are licensed by the Citadel Council to develop AI.
So they have known operations on Ilium and Noveria. Their holdings on Noveria are extremely extensive, where tight security allows them to work without harassment from any politically hostile organizations. So therefore they invest heavily in Noveria. The Synthetic Insights Manager at Noveria's Port Hanshan, being Lord Queen, also sort of protects them once they become the new Synthetic Insight Manager after the events of the first game.
Yep. So examples of their products include the Grey Box, which was released to the market in 2160, and the Synthetic Insight Sleep Easy series line of security VIs. The Sleep Easy series can run mechs and has a very fast response matrix compared to others of this caliber, and an industry standard cyber warfare defensive suite.
Yep, so that's it for the major corporations. I guess we can also talk a little bit more about what happened in each game on Noveria. So as we sort of discussed previously about Mass Effect 1, Synthetic Insights may be one of the companies who contribute capital to Noveria Development Corporation, though Queen mentions that Synthetic Insights relies on the goodwill of the NDC's executive board to work on Noveria. Commander Shepard claims to have heard the company's name mentioned in the news media lately, so it's sort of assumed that there's a lot of, I guess, controversy going on surrounding it. Given the recent Geth attacks on human colonies, Synthetic Insights may have been consulted as experts on artificial intelligence or freshly criticized for their research. The corporation's offices on Noveria were temporarily shut down by Administrator Anilana in 2183, pending inquiry into Lord Queen's knowledge of the Administrator's corrupt dealings. Queen has incriminating data about Anilana on a computer terminal inside the offices, which are searched by the Administrator's agents.
Yep. So Synthetic Insights appearance in Mass Effect 2 as well, where there's a little side mission where they basically have a non-discrimination employment policy, but they do refrain from hiring slave labor or even indentured servants. So there's obviously a scene where there's Shepard can help mediate a deal between an indentured Quarian and her contract broker as well. This is pretty much the main big appearances of Synthetic Insights. We can speculate a little bit in a minute, but I guess the next sort of locations real quick we have Port Hanshan, which is the capital of Noveria. It's also, I guess, the main docking port of trade and office operations. There's a couple of levels to it where they have the main ground level. They also have the mezzanine, which has the hotel and has the bar, and then some of the other offices. And then they have the garage as well, and then basically you can go from there going through to Peak 15, which is one of 17 of these hot labs that have been set up throughout the planet. Okay, so let's get on to speculation then. So for me, I want to start our kind of theory here, which is that this is a very heavily cyberpunk influenced world. Not least with the fact that corporations are ruling, but also the nature of those corporations. You have kind of the three of the main elements of cyberpunk corporation rule, which is into, I guess, genetic or bioengineering, into synthetic life, like organic AI life, and also obviously warfare and weaponry, security, which are kind of the big three, right?
Yeah, so definitely those are the three you'd always expect to see as the major sort of companies in cyberpunk worlds, and absolutely these are the big three on Noveria. It also features a heavy Chinese slash Russian slash Asian influence, with the obvious being the names like Hanshan, Aluetsk Valley, and Noveria, Aluetsk, and Noveria, all deriving from Cold Mountain in Chinese.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's very, I guess, like homage to countries currently that have, I guess, like a communist, like very well-known communist background. And of course, as I said, another video, we talked about how cyberpunk was not just a warning of like corporate rule. It's also a warning of, a communist-style government rule. So yeah, I guess this is the first time in the game series that you're really, I guess, introduced to what I guess is really ruling the galaxy. I mean, the council don't really, to be honest. It's kind of shown, obviously, in this galaxy, corporations and money does talk as well. To the extent that there's this quote from obviously Gianna Parasini, which is you can't bludgeon your way through bureaucracy, Shepard. Which is a kind of an awesome quote, and it's I guess it's the game dev's way of saying that government is there, but who's really in charge.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, as we talked about before, we obviously have the Citadel-led space, which is what you're sort of led to believe is what the main system of control is in the Mass Effect galaxy. But you come to this location that has a lot of sort of underhanded dealings, and all these things that you thought were supposed to be illegal, like obviously AI research is supposed to be outlawed, yet synthetic insights are still performing these sort of actions here. So yeah, I definitely think Noveria is one of the most interesting planets involved in the Mass Effect series. It really gives you a new sort of insight into actually how the universe works. It's not all cut and dry. It's not just the Citadel rules everything. There are a lot of sort of underhanded things going on, and that really makes the universe believable.
Yeah, and I think the in terms of in-game, I guess the boss fight with Benezia is also one of the most early iconic boss fights in Mass Effect. But it's also, again, like a redemption almost, where she has some moments of lucidity and tries to control herself as well. But again, in general, I think this is one of those fan favorites. I mean, we're playing in the background at the moment on the video the Port Hanshan ambient music track, which I personally have absolutely adore. But there's a lot of people fans online that talk about wanting to sit by some of those hot water kind of fountains in the mezzanine whilst nursing a beer or a coffee and sort of just looking out over the blizzard and over the kind of mountains. It's one of those places that you'd love to go.
Yeah, it's really, really well made. And honestly, I hope if they make a new game back in the correct galaxy, we don't talk about Andromeda here. Then I would love to return to Noveria and see how it's doing, maybe in the future, or a different time to when Shepard was able to go there.
Absolutely.
So with that's pretty much all we have on Noveria. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you have anything to ask in the comments, or if you have any more comments to sort of give us on Noveria, then let us know. But with that, thank you for watching.
And always remember,
you've never worked in the corporate world, have you, Commander? You can't bludgeon through bureaucracy.
I can bludgeon pretty hard.